Intermittent fasting has become a popular technique for a number of reasons. I wrote about intermittent fasting several times, at least 3 or 4 articles, I believe, in my Applied Metabolics newsletter. In fact, one of the articles talked about how intermittent fasting can actually slow down the aging of the heart and prevent complications related to heart aging, such as congestive heart failure and other problems. But what about intermittent fasting in relation to bodybuilding fitness? Does it have any advantages, and what are the disadvantages? Obviously, you have to eat to make gains, so it just goes, you don't have to be a scientist to figure out if you're not eating any food, not taking any amino acids, protein, or nutrients, you're not exactly in a growth state. But the question in relation to fasting is, will short-term fasting, in other words, not fasting for a matter of hours to several days, lead to a catabolic effect in muscle where you begin to lose muscle? Well, we'll talk about this in this video, but another thing another reason that I think motivates a lot of people to engage in various types of fasting is the notion that fasting will cause a weight reduction or especially a loss of body fat. Now, of course, if you don't, calories do count no matter what anyone tells you, although some calories are more fattening than others. Refined sugars, excess fat. I mean, you can have the same amount of calories, but if you eat an equal amount of, or what they call a eucaloric, or the same amount of calories from a protein source, you're not going to gain nearly as much body fat as you would from eating refined carbohydrates and excess fat. So calories do count, but to say that calories all the same, I would disagree with, because it doesn't take into account hormonal factors, digestion factors, but that's another story. How effective is intermittent fasting for promoting fat loss? Well, obviously, if you don't take in calories, it does tend to stimulate or promote body fat loss. However, they've done several recent studies where they've compared intermittent fasting to just conventional dieting, such as lowering calories, that type of thing, and the fat loss is about the same. So, in other words, you could say, well, if intermittent fasting isn't that superior for causing, let's say, body fat loss, why bother? Well, one reason that you want to consider intermittent fasting is because of the health benefits. And there's no doubt that intermittent fasting imparts a lot of health benefits. For example, there are some researchers who believe that, let's say, if you have type 2 diabetes, which is caused by, initially you get an insulin resistance, sometimes you get hyperinsulinemia, excess insulin release. A lot of times, they put you on medication. Could be anything from metformin to certain oral drugs, GLP-1 inhibitors, that type of thing, or in a worst case scenario, insulin. There are some researchers that believe that a type 2 diabetic who does two things, if they control their carbohydrate intake, in other words, tend to use a lower carbohydrate type of diet, and also engage in intermittent fasting, maybe once or twice a week or more, that would actually completely cure type 2 diabetes. And that's a pretty impressive situation, because type 2 diabetes is on the rise. There's millions of people all over the world that have it. It's going up because of, probably because of inactivity. Type 2 diabetes is related to the amount of body fat you have. And people with, with the high tech and all that, they're getting less active. They're eating a lot of bad food, and they're not burning off the glucose and all the carbohydrates and stuff they take in, the excess calories. And in many cases, that'll lead to type 2 diabetes. That's why it's going up. But if you follow a lower carbohydrate diet, and you also engage in intermittent fasting, there's been cases on record of people that have been able to get all completely off their diabetic medication, where basically they're cured of diabetes. Now, intermittent fasting isn't for everyone. There's certain people that shouldn't even consider it. For example, children and adolescents. I don't know why any child or even a teenager would want to undergo intermittent fasting because those periods are intense growth periods that count on calories, protein, and nutrients. And even short-term fasting is not really a good idea if you're in a growing stage. Women who are pregnant or breastfeeding, again, these are high-calorie conditions that require more calories than usual. It's not a good idea to engage in any type of fasting. Now, for people who have diabetes, a lot of medical authorities will say diabetics should not engage in intermittent fasting because of the danger of hypoglycemia or excessively low blood glucose levels. That is not really true. I don't know why they say that, because when you engage in intermittent fasting, I'll go into more detail later, but let's say that after a while, your body has certain, let's say, fail-safe measures to help maintain blood glucose levels. So even if you're not eating any food, the blood glucose level won't drop to dangerously low levels or hypoglycemia. Among these things, these body safeguards include growth hormone. A lot of people think of growth hormone as an anabolic hormone. They don't realize, though, that one of the functions of growth hormone is to maintain blood glucose levels. And growth hormone, in fact, that's one of the side effects of taking large amounts. Any bodybuilder will tell you, one of the side effects of taking large doses of growth hormone is you get this extremely high blood glucose level. And because of that, a lot of bodybuilders try and counteract it by having insulin injections, which will lower the blood glucose levels. But growth hormone comes into play this is an important point. I've seen a lot of articles where they talk about the features of fasting, and they mention, it stimulates growth hormone, and growth hormone helps to mobilize fat, and that's one of the reasons why intermittent fasting will help you lose body fat. The only problem with that is growth hormone is what they call a counter-regulatory hormone. In other words, it only comes into play when your existing energy stores are almost exhausted. When I'm talking about existing energy stores, I'm talking about circulating blood glucose. Glucose is the only sugar that circulates in the blood. And also you have two other storage sites for carbohydrate, the liver glycogen and the muscle glycogen. When those things are pretty low, the body, again, initiates counter-regulatory hormones, including growth hormone, to maintain the blood glucose. They immediately maintain. Growth hormone does that by helping to mobilize fat. Some of the fat, a portion of the fat or triglyceride called glycerol can be converted into liver into glucose. And that'll, again, kick up your blood glucose into normal levels. But the point I'm trying to make is a lot of these articles and websites deceive people by leading them to believe that you get a growth hormone release like 3 hours after you're into a fast, or maybe 8 hours. Not true. Not true. Again, growth hormone release is maximized during the fast only after your existing energy supplies are extremely low. What are we talking in time? We're talking maybe 48 hours. 48 hours. If you've been fasting for 48 hours, which is 2 days straight, you're going to get probably a 700, 800% increase in growth hormone release, but it takes that long. You're not going to get any substantial growth hormone with a 16-hour fast or an 8-hour fast. It ain't going to happen. But so what exactly? There's different types of intermittent fasting. Usually the range of time for typical intermittent fasting is 12 to 40 hours. You're not supposed to eat any food. A lot of people say, well, can I take amino acids? Can I take this? Can I take that? No. If you take in anything that has calories, you're breaking the fast. What can you have? Fluids. You definitely want to have fluids. You can get dehydrated pretty fast, especially if you do a fast longer than 24 hours. So what you can have on an intermittent fast is certain fluids: water, coffee, calorie-free beverages, no solid foods, nothing with calories, no amino acids. A lot of bodybuilders say, well, they've asked me over the years, I want to go on a fast. Can I take amino acids? I'm not going to eat any protein foods, but can I take amino acids so to prevent the muscles from going catabolic? No, because amino acids do contain calories, and you're taking amino acids. Some of them are actually what they call glucogenic, meaning some of the amino acids can be converted directly into glucose. And once that happens, you're not in a fasting state anymore. Furthermore, there's no need to take amino acids unless you're doing super extended fasts longer than 72 hours. You're not going to really burn a lot of protein even after 2 days. As I said, you have the counter-regulatory hormones that prevent your body from becoming catabolic, digging into your protein, for example, and breaking them down. That would be catabolic. Growth hormone, again, one of the main functions of growth hormone, if not the main function, is as an anti-catabolic hormone. As a matter of fact, if you take growth hormone alone without any steroids or any other drug, you're not going to get much muscle size at all. But what it will do, because of the anti-catabolic action, it will help you to maintain muscle even under stringent dieting conditions, such as zero carbohydrate, very low calories. It'll help you it'll kind of block the use or the breakdown of muscle as energy by blocking the effects of cortisol. Cortisol is an adrenal steroid hormone, which under certain conditions is catabolic. Cortisol will start to kick in pretty fast on a fast, maybe after 24 hours, but the cortisol at that point is not catabolic. It's not breaking down muscle. What it's doing is it's helping to maintain blood glucose levels. Very little muscle is being broken down. That's a major myth about especially intermittent fasting, the idea that if you go on an intermittent fast, you're immediately going to lose muscle. It doesn't happen. And again, I hate to sound redundant. It's because of these safeguards. Growth hormone, there's other hormones. It's way too complex to get into in a video, but I did get into it into my articles in Applied Metabolics. If you subscribe, you can read all the details of why you can go on intermittent fasts for a fairly long time and not lose muscle. I explain all the mechanisms, but I can't do it here. It would take too long. Let's say, for example, that you finish dinner at 7 p.m. on Monday and you don't eat again until 7 p.m. Tuesday. That's a 24-hour fast. Some people like to fast from breakfast to breakfast or lunch to lunch. It's up to the individual. The 5 most popular types of fasting are what they call time-restricted eating. That involves fasting every day for 12 hours or longer and eating in the remaining hours. In other words, you fast for 12 hours, you eat the rest of the time. An example of this would be the 16/8 method. That's a very popular type of time-restricted fasting or eating, where you fast for 16 straight hours and then you eat for 8 hours. And during that 8-hour eating period, you could get in anywhere from 2 or 3 or more meals, depending on how much you want to eat. Now they've shown a very interesting animal study a couple of years ago, found that it was, I think, a mouse study. They found that if they restricted the food in the mice to a certain pattern of time restriction, the mice did not get fat. No matter how much they ate, they didn't gain any fat. However, if they made the mice eat at a time when they normally don't eat, now specifically, mice tend to eat at night. Rodents like to eat at night. They don't eat during the day. What they did is they took a group of the rodents, they restricted their eating to the day, and they compared that to the rodents that were eating time restricted at night like they usually do. They found that the rodents that ate the same number of calories during the day gained fat. The ones that ate at their, let's say, normal time restriction time, which was at night, gained no fat at all. So, and this is the same number of calories. So obviously, again, it's way too complex to explain the mechanism. Again, it has to do with hormones, gut hormones, this and that. I go into that in Applied Metabolics. But suffice to say that time-restricted eating is a pretty good way to control body composition if you're able to eat within a certain restricted window, like 12 hours, and don't eat it all the rest of the time. Another popular intermittent fasting technique is what they call the 5-2 diet. That's where you eat normally 5 days a week, normal, just normal. And then on weekends, let's say Monday through Friday, you eat normally, and then on Saturday and Sunday, you restrict your calories to only 500 to 600, only on Saturday and Sunday, then you go back to your normal eating. That was invented by some British writer, and a lot of people like that type of intermittent fasting. A more extreme form of intermittent fasting is what they call eat, stop, eat. that's where you don't eat at all. 1 day a week, or maybe twice a week. For 24 hours, you eat nothing. A lot of anti-aging, whatever you call it, anti-aging, I don't want to call them experts, but let's say fans, they like to do that. They like to, go on a fast twice a week, once or twice a week, but they don't eat anything at all for a day. Then you have the alternate day fasting, which is that's probably one of the easier ways to do it, where you fast 1 day and then you eat the next day. And when you eat the next day, you eat whatever you want. You don't restrict foods, but the day after that, you wouldn't eat anything. Still another form of intermittent fasting. This was invented by a friend of mine, an Israeli guy named Ori Hofmeyer. He wrote a book about it called The Warrior Diet. The Warrior Diet is it's a form of he didn't call it intermittent fasting, but basically it is. It involves eating a little bit of, let's say, small snacks like raw fruits and vegetables during the day, but very little food during the day, just very little food during the day, and eating one large meal at night. Now, Ori said that, and I know the guy, I'm telling you, he's lean. I met him guy has no body fat at all. He tells me on that one meal that he ate at night, he ate whatever he wanted. I mean, literally tons of carbohydrate, whatever. And the fact that he hardly ate anything during the day except just enough to keep his blood sugar up, like a little bit of raw fruit and vegetable, he stayed very lean. So that's another form of intermittent fasting. I also will point out at this point that one of the features of intermittent fasting, and again, I hate to sound redundant, I explain all the details in Applied Metabolics, but suffice to say that the probably only recognized way of increasing the lifespan, and they know it exists in animals, rodents, cats, mice, fish. If you restrict calories by about 30 to 40%, the animals always live longer, always, and they have a lot of health benefits. Now, they don't really know whether it's because it keeps them lean or causes the release of certain proteins in the body, like sirtuin proteins, this and that. I'm not going to go into detail, but the point I'm trying to make is that some scientists believe that regular use of intermittent fasting will give you about 95% of the health benefits of calorie restriction without the starvation involved in calorie restriction. Because staying on a diet each day that is only 35% less calories, that's tough. Most people can't handle that, but they can handle at least most people can handle intermittent fasting. So again, some of the features of intermittent fasting, as I said, it supports metabolic health. It can treat something called the metabolic syndrome, which is a number of symptoms related to the onset of cardiovascular disease and diabetes, such as elevated blood sugar, elevated lipids or fats, wider waist, elevated triglycerides. It's a metabolic problem. Intermittent fasting basically can cure that. It also seems to lower blood pressure. It helps to stabilize blood sugar. As I said, as far as weight loss, it will promote weight loss if you do it right. If you're strict about it, but it's really, as far as weight loss, it's not really that much of an advantage over normal, lowering calories, lowering carbs. It doesn't have, but there are some studies, as I said, the rodent studies and some human studies showing that the time restricted eating and the 16/8 method of intermittent fasting has been linked to weight loss. Those are the two types. And also some people have gotten pretty good weight loss benefits from alternate day fasting, and the 5-2 diet also seems to help. There's a couple of studies that show that helps also. As I said, I almost forgot to mention one of the most important medical benefits of intermittent fasting. It's a process called autophagy. Autophagy, it relates to what happens in your body is your cells undergo a certain amount of replicative cycles, meaning the cell kind of dies off and is repaired and this and that. A lot of that depends on these telomeres, these little kind of tails on the end of chromosomes. They get shorter and shorter every time a cell replicates. Eventually, when the telomere is done, or is when it's gone, the cell goes into a state called senescence. And the problem with senescence is that it's basically a zombie cell that's just sitting there. And unfortunately, it not only gets in the way of normal cells, but it also secretes extremely inflammatory chemicals that lead to systemic inflammation, which is the cornerstone of aging and most diseases, including heart disease, brain disease, cancer. These inflammatory chemicals secreted by senescent cells are called SASP, senescence-associated phenotype, something like that. But the point is that they're very inflammatory. So one of the keys to aging successfully is to get rid of these senescent cells. The body can do that through a process called autophagy. You can look at autophagy as a kind of a cleaning out. You know how, like, let's say you throw out old stuff you don't need? When that happens in the body, it's called autophagy, and it's extremely good for health and aging. And when you engage in fasting, you stimulate autophagy, and that's probably the key benefit of intermittent fasting or fasting in general. But again, a lot of websites and videos they misrepresent this autophagy aspect of fasting. They lead you to believe that if you go on a 16-hour fast, you go right into autophagy, and you're basically keeping your body healthy because you're clearing out the old cells. Unfortunately, that's not true. Autophagy takes a while to kick in, just like growth hormone. To really kick into it, you don't even get close to autophagy until you've been fasting over 24 hours and more likely 48 hours, meaning you got to fast for about 2 days straight to get into autophagy. Most forms of these short periods of fasting, you're not going to get much autophagy. The good news is there are certain supplements you can take that can mimic the autophagy you get from fasting without having to fast. One of them is called, the main one is a chemical produced in the body called spermidine. It's not sperm, it's called spermidine because it was discovered in sperm. But this stuff actually promotes autophagy just like fasting, and you can do it without having to fast. It's in supplement form. However, I've looked at the supplements that they're selling, the spermidine supplements. They're extremely expensive, and usually they're made from wheat germ, and they contain a whopping 1 milligram of spermidine, which I don't think it's going to do much at all. And they charge something like anywhere from $150 to $200, $300 for this. Forget it. There's certain foods that contain spermidine. I'm not going to get into it here. Wheat germ is one of them. There's a couple others, but you could look it up. You can eat those foods, and you can get your spermidine naturally, and you can get autophagy if you don't feel like going on a fast. So those are some of the benefits. Another benefit of intermittent fasting, which I discussed in detail in Applied Metabolics, is that it kind of prevents degenerative brain changes that are involved in certain diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. So to make it a succinct statement, when you undergo intermittent fasting, you're basically keeping your brain young. You're going to maintain your memory, maintain your intelligence. That's an extremely important feature. So that's true. Now, what about the problems with intermittent fasting? Well, as I said, it's tough for people. The idea, a lot of websites and articles, they talk about how, you only get hungry within the first couple of hours when you go on a fast. And that's not true for everybody. Some people get voraciously hungry after not eating food for a day. Forget about 2 days. A lot of people just can't handle that. So, I mean, it's just too much for a lot of people. So some people say that if you do it regularly, if you engage in intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating, after a while, your body gets used to it, and you're not likely as hungry. Another problem is that if you go on an intermittent fast, let's say you're using intermittent fasting as a way of trying to help you lose some body fat. Well, a lot of people, when they break the fast, they're so hungry that they start eating a ton of food. They just stuff their face with all kinds of stuff. Though, I mean, I'm not talking about good food. I'm talking about stuff like junk food, high calorie food. That's basically completely annihilating any possible weight loss benefit from the fast. That's ridiculous. When you break the fast, the first meal you should eat should be a small, easily digested meal. Those who are involved in bodybuilding or fitness or sports should also definitely immediately have some protein food, because like I said, you're not going to lose a lot of muscle with only a day or two of fasting. But just on the safe side, it's a good idea to have some protein as soon as you break the fast. When you go on a fast, you can have because if your blood sugar does drop low, you can get some mood swings. You can get very irritable. You can get anxiety. Some people have a problem with that. So that's basically it, I think, for fasting. So again, if you want more details, as a matter of fact, there's so much information. I've already done 4 articles on various aspects of fasting for my Applied Metabolics newsletter. But I was just about 2 weeks ago, I was going to do another article because it seems to be such a populous topic. And I said, maybe I should do another article on fasting. But then I went back and read the articles I'd already written, and I realized there was really nothing new to add to. My articles went into such detail. Some of these articles are 30, 40 pages. They cover the waterfront. There was nothing I could add. So I didn't do the article. But those articles still are available to anybody who subscribes to my Applied Metabolics newsletter. And if you want more information on nutrition, exercise science, anti-aging research, effective fat loss techniques, including fasting, which is semi-effective, as I said earlier, hormonal therapy, ergogenic aids, supplement science, which supplements work, which ones don't, women's health and fitness, many other topics. Nobody covers as many topics as I do in Applied Metabolics. I've been a writer for over 40 years. I know how to write for the public. I've been an editor of various magazines. People know me from when I wrote for the magazines in the 80s and 90s. I have about 9,000 articles published. I have a lot of experience, which I can't say for the other people that write for digital, that have digital publications. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not saying the information in these other digital publications is wrong or anything like that. I'm just saying that, and there's no other way to put it, the writing stinks. It's very hard to read. These people, they don't know how to write. They're writing like they're still in college, writing a thesis or something, and I can't even read it myself. You read a paragraph of their writing and you're falling asleep. My articles in Applied Metabolics are written in magazine style. I try and keep it lively. I put a lot of anecdotes in the articles about me training in the so-called golden era of bodybuilding, like when Arnold Schwarzenegger was around, that kind of stuff, the original Gold's Gym. So subscribe today. It's anywhere from 30 to 45, 50 pages every month. Comes out the first of the month. It's www.appliedmetabolics.com. When you subscribe, I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page, where each day I post new information on nutrition, exercise science, general medicine, and also I answer questions that are posted by subscribers. You have to be a subscriber to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page. I have an email portal with my Applied Metabolics webpage, where current subscribers only. I don't accept questions from unsolicited questions. You have to be a subscriber. You can send me a short question about anything you read in Applied Metabolics or anything that comes to mind, and I'll try and answer it. Again, you have to be a subscriber. I consider that a bonus to my subscribers because I appreciate their subscription. And I'm not, unfortunately, my subscribers come first. I'm going to answer their questions. I don't have time to answer people that send me any question. I don't think anybody really does that has any kind of knowledge. So that's about it. By the way, there's no ads in my Applied Metabolics. I'm not trying to sell you anything other than the evidence-based, solid information. I check and recheck everything I write, so you could be confident that I'm telling you the complete truth. In fact, I'm one of the last bastions of truth you'll find on the entire internet. Most of these people that have publications or put out YouTube videos are always usually involved with some sort of company, whether it's a supplement company. They have ulterior motives. They seem to be presenting you information, but what they're trying to do is sell you products. I've seen some recent videos where they're actually trying to get you to buy T-shirts and cups with their name on it. Like, like what are we, like 6 years old? I mean, what if a full-grown man is going to wear like a T-shirt with some other guy's name? I mean, what are we, the Mickey Mouse Club? What the hell is that about? I don't know what goes through these guys' heads. That's, to me, is absurd. But I don't know what kind of. Maybe they're that broke they need the money. I don't know. If that's the case, I feel sorry for them. So that's about it. If you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. If you have any suggestions of future videos that I cover here on Generation Iron, feel free to send your suggestion to Generation Iron, and they'll refer it to me, and maybe we can make a video out of it. Go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. They're the best friend you'll ever have. Take care. Thank you for listening.